we are helping folks build and scale their teams, because once you build the business, your job then becomes to build the people that build the business, hiring a team and leading that team to create success.
The thing that's really powerful that you can do with like new grads is you can't wait all day for them to improve their clinical skills. Like that takes time.
We need to incorporate clinical training into initial sales training.
Before you hire your second PT, your first PT needs to be hitting KPIs.
Hey, welcome everybody. Happy Thursday. Ben, how you doing? While I get the Facebook up and running.
Doing good. Yeah, I think this will be a good one for those that have, especially those that have a team or thinking about bringing on a team of PTs and really want to grow and scale, and something that I wish I would have had insight in and had to learn the hard way. So I'm hoping that I can shed light and help you guys avoid some of the mistakes that I made on this.
Yep. This one's going to be huge, everybody. So welcome to another episode of the Cash Physical Therapy Headquarters podcast. Today, we're talking about why your staff PTs or even you are struggling to convert people into packages. And it is not the reason that you think of. It is not your training method. It is not your sales scripts. It is something different entirely. So if you're struggling to convert patients into your cash packages, this episode is going to be your wake-up call, where we're going to break down three particular things: why the usual training methods are falling flat on your team, the surprising mindset block that's holding you and your staff PTs back from being successful in the cash pay model and enrolling people into more premium packages where we know they'd be getting better outcomes, and lastly, how to turn the tide and empower your team to thrive in your cash practice, where not only are you getting world-class outcomes for your patients, but your team is succeeding and making progress towards their own personal goals through the achievements of the mission of your practice. So super excited to dive into this. If you get value out of it today, don't forget to share it and subscribe to the Cash Physical Therapy Headquarters podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And so this episode in particular was inspired because Ben and I, on a weekly basis, we have well over 150 people inside of our highest level mastermind at Clinical Marketer. And inside this mastermind, we are helping folks build and scale their teams, because once you build the business, your job then becomes to build the people that build the business, hiring a team and leading that team to create success for not only them, but for the business and for the clients. And all the time, especially when people are new to hiring, and even some people who are veterans that come from the more old school way of operating things, they tend to always blame the PT or the clinician that, if they're struggling to convert, it's because they're the wrong fit or they just suck at sales. And we hear this all the time. How often do you hear stuff like that, Ben?
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing that we see with on a smaller scale or just earlier on in the journey of someone scaling their practice of like, yeah, all my leads suck. And then they do nothing with their marketing, but they dive in and get better at sales. And like, oh, my leads have been getting better. Oh, what have you changed with your marketing? Nothing. Oh, do you think you're asking maybe better questions, getting better at sales? Yeah, I've been putting a lot of time and effort in that. Yeah, your leads are getting better, in quotations, because you're asking the right questions. It's the same thing with your PTs that you bring on. Are you getting better at leading? Are you getting better at setting expectations? That's what turns things around.
100%. What are the conditions that you are creating that make success inevitable? I think the lead comparison is perfect, because you're right. If you don't change anything with your system and then you immediately start bringing on new leads, if they're not converting, it's because your systems aren't built for that kind of traffic. And if you're bringing on PTs that you've interviewed and they seemed amazing on the interview and they crushed it, but then they're flopping when they actually get started with you, it's very rarely them. You've probably had 3 or 4 conversations with them before they got hired. Your initial expectations and what you kind of read from them was probably correct. It's your systems and your failure to understand people's own kind of psychology that is the reason why they're underperforming. It is ultimately your fault. That's like, we can finish the episode right there. It's just your fault. That's it.
Yeah, and it's and before people get frustrated about that, know that's actually a great thing, because you can control it, right? Mm-hmm. I'd rather it be that case where it's on me because I have control over that, other than just throwing up my hands and saying, oh, it's something external that I can't control. Then You're fucked. At least you can control it when it falls on you, and most of the case it does.
100%. So let's get into it. So why the usual training methods fall flat? So there's three things that we're really covering today. That, the surprising mindset block that's holding people back, and how to turn the tide and empower your PTs to be successful. The overarching theme of this, the ultimate problem that we're not seeing, is that the real problem is their confidence in their clinical abilities. You can give people sales scripts all day long, and they can be the best at delivering that without sounding robotic. But if they don't truly believe in the product that is being sold, their sales are going to struggle, because that's going to come across in their tonality, their voice inflections, the words they choose to use, the questions they ask. It impacts everything. And especially if you're hiring new grads, you might train them up on your sales process, but at the end of the day, if they don't feel 100% convicted that they can get someone in a world-class outcome in 6 visits or in 10 visits, they're going to lack the right level of confidence that's going to get that prospect to believe in that product.
Right. And the thing that's really powerful that you can do with that, with like new grads, is you can't wait all day for them to improve their clinical skills. Like, that takes time. So a trick that we use within ProKinetics to help speed up this process so they can sell with conviction, even though they in the back of mind know that they don't know, is we simply ask them 2 questions. 1, if you don't know the answer to something, will you be able to figure it out? Right. And everybody's like, yeah, I can, do research. I've got, and that's the thing too, is we ask like, do you feel confident in the team that's around you to be able to ask questions to and be able to get the answers to be able to help this person? Yeah, I do. Great. Then you can sell with conviction, because 1, you are the type of person that is going to research and figure out how to help this person, even though in the moment you don't know, but you will figure it out and you will be able to help them because of it. And 2, you've got myself and the rest of the team around you to be able to bounce ideas off of. And that again goes back to your point, Jordan, about the environment. Are you giving the environment for this person to be able to thrive? And that comes to the point too of the cadence, which I'm sure we'll talk about, of like meetings and structure around those. But are you giving your team the environment to be able to ask questions so they can be confident that they will be able to figure something else out by talking with you, even though they might not know in the spot at the evaluation, if they can help?
Yep, 100%. And so the getting the right person is obviously key. So asking the right questions, making sure that they're good at problem solving, making sure that they're confident in their ability to find solutions to problems they don't understand quite yet. But let's assume that we do find someone who just crushes the interviews. They seem like a great cultural fit. They know what they're doing, but for some reason, they're still not closing on packages, and it's costing you money. And let's talk about why the usual training methods fall flat. Now, when most people bring PTs on, usually the process is pretty elementary. Okay. They have maybe some standard SOPs. They have some phone scripts. They might do some mock evals and some sales role play. But then after that, everything kind of just stops, and it's expected that once they know the script, that they will just master it. Like, they will just figure it out, and they will have the drive to go out there and figure it out the same way that you did. But they're not the owner. Can you talk to that a little bit, Ben?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It does get easier as you grow and scale. Though one of the most difficult hire for multiple reasons, but one of the reasons is the first PT you bring on, because they can be like, you sell that well because you have the authority of being the owner. It's not the case, right? So there is a lot of, once you get, and this is why it's so important, talked about this in other podcast episodes, that before you hire your second PT, your first PT needs to be hitting KPIs, because now they're setting the standard of what it is. And so that's where it gets easier as you hire on, because now that second PT or third PT that you bring on can't use the excuse, oh, you're only converting because you're the owner, because there's a PT that's just like them, that's not the owner, that's converting where they need to. So It does get easier as that occurs too. So, but I'm not sure if that answers your question. I can't remember.
No, it does. Like, you need to have, it really helps to have those things in place, because it helps with the confidence. It eliminates one of the easiest excuses that people have that allow them to resist the necessity of learning how to lead individuals to a solution that they don't quite trust yet. It's so important for us to learn the art of influence, because a lot of people, they need leaders. They need people who can guide them to having that right solution. But right now, the traditional way of training PTs to convert more into packages, we're so brainwashed by marketers and online coaches that it's like master sales, master sales, master sales. But a lot of the times we're neglecting the most important thing of all, which is the actual skill set of the clinician, because you could have zero salesmanship whatsoever. But if you are 100% believe in what it is you're recommending and your ability to get someone better, that belief is going to be transferred to your prospect. And you could completely fumble over your words on the actual sale itself. But if they feel that belief, they're going to make the sale anyway. And so we need to incorporate clinical training into the initial sales training for the prospect, because until your PTs have that belief in themselves, it doesn't matter how good of a sales process or script you have. They have to believe in the product that they're actually selling. So let's talk a little bit about how we do that. How do we initialize that? Like when we're first onboarding our staff, Ben, walk us through your kind of onboarding and training curriculum and how you incorporate clinical training into that curriculum.
Yeah. So first thing first is setting expectations during their onboarding. What are the KPIs that are supposed to be hit? What does a successful conversion and retention objective measures look like? And what has been the standard for the practice before they started, right? So they can set that expectation. So that's a big one. With regards to strictly clinical, what we do is we have a weekly one-on-one meeting with the clinic director, which is like sometimes sales can be anything that they feel is a main bottleneck. Just like with business, there's always one bottleneck. And if you are trying to solve anything else outside of that, it's a waste of time. Same thing with the one-on-ones with your clinician. There's always one main bottleneck that's preventing their growth more than anything. You need to identify it. So sometimes that's sales, sometimes that's clinical, sometimes it's learning the EMR. Right? It can be anything that they feel like is the biggest hang up from them progressing and hitting KPIs. We also have a one-on-one meeting. We have a chief Con Ed officer. They are our most experienced PT. They set up a weekly meeting with them strictly for Con Ed. There's nothing else, strictly Con Ed. The other one with the one-on-one with the clinic director is a mixed bag. It can be whatever they need support on. Sometimes that is clinical. So sometimes they are getting 2 one-on-ones for clinical with that. We also have a monthly one-on-one as a team that we do go over different manual therapy techniques, discuss difficult cases, go over those, collaborate as a team on those. So that's to start. And that is throughout the course of the 90-day ramp-up period. They're getting that many touch points. They're getting 2 dedicated hours every single week to be supported, and plus the monthly one-on-one for more of a culture and collaborating with the team. So that's strictly from a clinical standpoint.
Right. CEUs are not enough. Okay. Like, as we all know, most CEUs are kind of trash. You're just doing them to kind of check a box, but very few of them help you increase your own confidence, individual cases that you have. And we also know that they're few and far in between. So we need to have that extra layer of support for individual cases that each of your PTs are dealing with, because not only are they going to get an increased frequency of knowledge to increase their skill set, what also is going to happen is that when they are dealing with difficult cases, maybe they have a new patient that came in with a chronic issue that they're not really 100% confident in their ability to solve. What they will be confident in when you follow the process that Ben just laid out is that they have a support system of people that are more experienced than them, that even if they don't know 100% exactly what to do, they know the person that does, that's on their team. They got a meeting coming up with them on, in 2 days. It's not just the belief in self and in your clinical abilities. It's also belief in the support system that they have to find the answer. And so we have to increase the frequency in which we're working through cases together and providing feedback to one another and helping each other grow, not just for the clinical knowledge piece, but for the cultural piece as well. That creates the belief in what we're selling.
Yeah. And you need to, if you're going to be hiring new grads, you need to make sure they have that mindset of like, they're going to figure it out. One of my favorite quotes from an employee ever, well, it actually came from a new grad. And it's exactly what I just said. And it's something that we carried forward. He crushes it with sales. And I know internally he knows his clinical skills are behind. I'm like, how are you able to convert at the level that you do, at the same level as somebody that has 5 years of experience, when I know you have some insecurities about your clinical skills? Yeah. Because he's like, I know I'm the type of person that if I don't know something, I will figure it out. He's
Amen
like, I'll figure that out. If you hire somebody that doesn't have that mindset, that's where you got to tease those things out during the interview process.
Right. And how would you go about doing that again? Like, how would you isolate that particular attribute of somebody?
Yeah. So I like to, when I'm doing interview questions, I like to not ask like hypotheticals. I'm like, tell me a time about this. Yeah. Tell me, for example, maybe tell me about a time that you did an eval and you had no idea what was going on clinically. How'd you go about that? Right. I don't want hypotheticals like how, if you run into this, how would you?
Right. Tell me a time
that you did. Because everybody's been there, right? Maybe this is their first job. Tell me about a time in your clinical where you had no idea what was going on with the patient and how'd you go about handling that?
Love it. So when it comes to just typical training, before we start training on sales, we have to first train the belief, not just in their clinical skills, but in their ability to find the answer and to know with certainty and without judgment that there's someone else on their team to help give them the answers that they need to get the outcomes that we're promising people. So that's number one. Number two is a surprising mindset block holding many staff PTs back. So Ben, I'll open this one up and then you can layer into it. So a lot of people in medicine, they hate selling, right? It's an uncomfortable thing. There's definitely mindset issues. That's not what we're talking about here today. Okay. But we've done a lot of videos on money mindset. We can work through that. But the other side of it, the employee mindset, where, hey, like, why am I going to work so hard to make these package sales when it's just making the boss money? Like, I'm not really getting anything of that. Why should I push to make this, even though it's making me uncomfortable? And by, proximity, I'm making the patient uncomfortable because I'm uncomfortable. The patient's uncomfortable. Why am I pushing this so hard, basically, right? And so what we need to do with all of our PTs is help align the need for encouraging people to move into and enroll into packages with their own mission as an employee within your company. And so they have to see that, when we first bring them in, that selling packages isn't just for the business or just for the patient. It is also for the community at large, because through selling packages means that we're going to be able to get the business to this level faster, where we're going to be able to hire more people. And by hiring more people, we're creating more growth opportunities for you as an employee. So when we are transparent and clear about, when we first bring people on, what are their goals? What are their financial goals, their professional goals? What are they trying to accomplish? And then being crystal clear about what our mission and vision is as a company, well, then we can position selling packages not just as in the best interest of the patient, which we know they are, but also as the vehicle that's going to help get the company to where it needs to be sooner, that's going to create the professional opportunities for the PT. So now they're incentivized and they see the reason why they need to overcome the discomfort of having those sales conversations with people.
Right. It's a cascading effect, just like you said. And to go even deeper into the cascading effect of that is, if you whole point of sales and packages is to get buy-in from the patient. If you get buy-in from the patient, get better results. We also get better cash flow. Now we have better cash flow. Now we can spend more on ads. If we're able to spend more on ads, now we're able to help more people. We're helping more people through paid ads and through also evaluations. We're collecting more Google reviews. As we collect more Google reviews, now more people are financed organically because they're searching for physical therapy near me or physical therapy in my location. Now we're helping those people. And if we didn't do that sales, none of that stuff would have happened. Not only that, but we're not just helping more patients, but we're also helping other PTs. By more people finding us, now we need to hire. Now we can save that PT that is burnt out, seeing 20 patients a week or 20 patients a day over day, and they can join our team and not have to leave the profession.
Right.
That is the cascading effect of why we have to ethically sell cash packages, because it has a massive cascading effect on patients and helping more people. And that's why you have the big mission for why you're doing what you're doing.
Right. And it does help, because just saying that selling cash packages means that people are more invested and there's more buy-in, that is all theory. And your PT might be like, okay, yeah, maybe that's true. But what the data actually shows, which is hard to argue with, is that when you do sell packages, not only does retention increase, but the number of referrals and reviews that you're pulling in from those people also increases. And so what it tells us is that when people commit to something, they are then not only getting a better outcome because of that commitment, but the way that they're actually experiencing the process that they're going through also gets elevated, because they're more excited about it, which leads to better outcome, better experience, more reviews, more referrals. And so it's not just theory, it's consumer behavior. And so I think not only making sure that your PTs understand the long-term vision and the why behind, why we're selling packages to help advance the business, which therefore enhances your own growth rate within the business, which then also increases the number of people that we're able to impact. But also on the consumer behavior level, as Ben said, is just the buy-in that you get from clients and the outcomes that are resulted because of that increased buy-in.
Right.
So don't try to explain all of that. I would write all of that down and turn everything that Ben and I are talking about here into modules. When you first bring someone on, they should go through each of these things that helps them understand their purpose inside of the business, aside from just helping people get better. and how that additional purpose fuels the fire that is going to allow even more people in the community to be impacted.
Yeah, because that's what they ultimately care about, as they should. That's why we're in business.
Right. So how do we kind of put all of this together into practice if someone has a PT who is underperforming and they're telling themselves that this person just sucks? How can they look at their own situation, take responsibility, see where the problem might actually be, and how can we approach fixing that, Ben?
First thing I like to do is just ask them, hey, what do you feel like you're struggling with the most? Let them come to solution is. Have them come up with a solution, what they think the solution is, and guide them. And then ask, like, what support do you need from me to be able to do this? Right? Come up with, based on their solution that they came up with, how can I support you on that? That's simple as that, and then giving them the environment to have those weekly one-on-one meetings. But again, it comes down to setting expectations and then giving them that clear framework to build off of. And also giving them examples. One thing that's really important is, from a tactical standpoint, is them observing your evals. Because otherwise, up until then, it's all just theory, and they're like imagining what a perfect evaluation conversation and looks like. When they can see firsthand of how you do it or how another clinician does it, that's where we see things move the needle the most quickly.
Yeah, I love that.
Jordan.
No, I think it's what you said is really, really important, because it's asking versus telling. And when you ask, that's when you get buy-in from the other person, which is a completely different mindset to approach anything with. But I think in addition to that, it's also really important to understand what is likely going on in their mind. And when you do ask them like what they think is going on, realize that they're likely going to give you a surface level answer. Very, very, very few clinicians will ever actually admit that they have low clinical confidence. There's so much identity built into the skill set that they've created for themselves that to admit that they're actually not that confident, like treating shoulders or athletes, is a really hard thing to say out loud.
Yeah, it's like, I dropped $100,000. I still don't know what to do. Kind
Exactly.
of a hard thing to admit.
And so you need to approach it with empathy and understanding and say, it's like, hey, your conversion rates have been low for a while. And I know we've talked about this. Typically, based on, what I'm seeing, what I've seen from other people, it falls into like one of these two areas where, one, you just don't see why selling packages are important for patients and for the business, or B, you don't feel confident in what it is that you're recommending, which is why you're offering smaller packages or just doing on a per visit basis. Kind of seeing a little bit of both of those from you, but tell me where I might be getting this wrong. And so basically tell them what you think is going on and allow them to take responsibility for what the real issue is and give them the space. Approach it with empathy. Don't attack them with it, but create the room and atmosphere where they can open up to you and tell you without judgment that, we started this new running avatar and I'm not a runner. I don't feel comfortable selling packages to these people. And that's a very okay and common issue to have, but you have to create the space and the culture where people are open with sharing that kind of problem with you so that you can be proactive about solving it. But it starts before asking them what the problem is, because they're either not going to know or they're going to lie to your face because they're embarrassed or ashamed of what the real answer is. You have to set the table and tell them, here's what I think it is, so that they're forced to tell you what's actually going on, because what you think is going on might be worse than what they're afraid of admitting.
Yeah, I think that's good. You got to set that, kind of give them something to work with.
100%. So that's the only thing I would add to that. And then inside of the curriculum, instead of just going straight into sales, start off with the belief in their clinical abilities. And even if they are new, setting that expectation and showing them the process of, if you don't know what's going on, like, that's perfectly fine. Here's the process for letting us know when you want to learn more about a specific patient type or a particular issue, and create the standard and the timetable of when they're going to get this support, how to get this support. So in those scenarios where they don't know what to do, they can still be confident in the sale because they know what the process is to get the support they need to get the outcome the patient wants.
It's fun.
Cool. All right, guys, that is it for this episode of the Cash Physical Therapy Headquarters podcast. It is not all about sales. If you can believe in your clinical recommendation and you created a truly world-class patient experience that is above and beyond what is expected of traditional medicine, you are going to be in a really good shape. You could not have a sales script. You could suck at sales, but if you have a great experience and you believe in your abilities, you will close faster than anybody who's just decent at sales. Okay. So if you're introverted, that probably sounds like a pretty good deal for you. If you guys are looking for help in improving your sales process, your patient experience, and creating systems to increase, clinical confidence and excellence, drop a comment below. We'd be happy to share any resources we have that can help you overcome this cultural barrier preventing your team from performing at the level that you need them to. Anything to add, Ben?
Nope, nailed it.
Heck yeah. Awesome, guys. Have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll catch you next time. Peace.
See ya.